Hey everyone, welcome back to the Macroeconomics side channel. I am so incredibly pumped to have you here today. In this explainer, we're going to unpack one of the absolute coolest and most important aspects of open economy macroeconomics. We are talking about the balance of payments and the BP curve. We'll be breaking down the exact mechanisms that dictate how money flows across borders and how entire nations balance their global checkbooks. I mean, we're talking about trillions of dollars moving around the world every single day. It's a massive concept, but we're going to make it super intuitive by mapping it out step by step.
Seriously? Just think about that for a second. Every single day, there are millions upon millions of cross-border transactions. You buy a phone that was put together in another country, a pension fund in Tokyo decides to buy treasury bonds issued in New York, a local factory buys raw materials from halfway across the globe. How on earth does a nation actually keep track of all this? How do we know if a country is bleeding money or hoarding it? That crazy, seemingly impossible scale of accounting is exactly what we are going to decode today.
Okay, let's dive right in. We've got 5 quick beats to hit today: the master global ledger, the current and capital accounts, the accounting equilibrium, constructing the BP curve, and finally, putting it in motion by shifting that BP curve. Let's get to it.
Starting off with part 1, the master global ledger. We've got to figure out the basic framework for tracking all this global chaos.
So enter the balance of payments, or what we usually just call the BOP. Basically, this is the ultimate master ledger. Whenever wealth, goods, or financial assets cross a national border, boom, the BOP is there to catch it and record it. It is the absolute foundation of open economy macroeconomics. Everything a country earns from the rest of the world and every single cent it spends flows through this one conceptual ledger.
Under the hood, it's actually pretty elegant. The BOP runs on a really strict double-entry system. Every single transaction gets recorded in a highly specific binary way. You've got credits, that's money coming into the country, representing receipts from foreigners. And you've got debits, money going out, representing payments to foreigners. Say you export a car. That brings money in, so that's a credit. Import a new laptop, that sends money out, so that's a debit. It's meticulously designed so literally nothing falls through the cracks.
Moving right along to Section 2, the current and capital accounts. Because, well, you can't exactly throw buying an Apple and buying an overseas factory into the exact same bucket, right? So, we split the master ledger right down the middle. On the left side, we have the current account. Think of this as the real economy. It tracks physical goods, services, and income. We're talking merchandise trade, like machinery crossing the border. We're talking net services, like freight or tourism. And it even tracks income, like overseas dividends and one-way transfers like foreign aid. Now pivot over to the right side, the capital account. This side is all about the financial stuff, assets and claims. It tracks portfolio investments, like if you bought some foreign government bonds. It tracks direct investments, say a local company buys a controlling stake in a foreign firm. And it tracks official central bank transactions. Simply put, current account is the flow of goods and services, capital account is the flow of money and debt. All right, Section 3, the accounting equilibrium. We've got these 2 massive accounts. How do they actually balance each other out? Here is where it gets kind of fascinating. In macro theory, there's a golden rule. The sum of the current account and the capital account must equal exactly 0, period. It's a total zero-sum game. Think about it. If we are importing way more than we export, we're running a current account deficit. But we have to pay for all those extra imports somehow, right? So we borrow from foreigners or sell off assets, which creates a perfect capital account surplus. One side's deficit is the absolute mirror image of the other side's surplus. Now sure, in the real world, statisticians use a tiny balancing item because tracking millions of daily trades isn't totally flawless. But the fundamental economic law? It stays rock solid. The scale must always balance.
Okay, Section 4, constructing the BP curve. This is where we take all that dry accounting and turn it into a dynamic, working model.
The secret sauce here is the BP identity. This equation beautifully bridges the gap between trade and capital flows. It says that the balance of payments, or BP, equals net exports, or trade balance, NX, plus net capital inflow, which we call CAPA. And for true equilibrium, that whole thing has to equal 0. Notice how trade, NX, depends heavily on domestic income, foreign income, and exchange rates. But that capital inflow, that CAPA, that relies almost entirely on the domestic interest rate. Money chases yield, right? Capital floods into a country when its interest rates are higher than the rest of the world. Keep that specific magnet effect in mind.
So let's actually map this out, plotting interest rates against income.
Step 1, let's pretend domestic income suddenly goes up. Because people feel richer, Step 2 kicks in, import demand spikes. We buy way more stuff from overseas, which hurts our trade balance. Now, to keep our BP equation perfectly at zero, we desperately need a counterweight. Enter Step 3, the domestic interest rate absolutely must rise. Think of that higher interest rate as a giant vacuum. It sucks in foreign capital, which perfectly offsets the cash we're losing on trade. And honestly, that is exactly why the BP curve slopes upward. Higher income literally requires higher interest rates to maintain balance. As income climbs, the interest rate has to climb with it to draw in the capital needed to pay for all those extra imports. And finally, Section 5, shifting the BP curve. We've built our upward sloping line. Now let's see what happens when the real world throws a wrench into things.
First off, what happens if an economy wanders off the line? Being exactly on the curve means perfect balance. But what if you're operating in the space above the BP curve? Well, that means your interest rates are actually higher than they need to be for your current income level. The result? A massive balance of payments surplus because too much foreign capital is flooding in. On the flip side, if you drop below the curve, you've got a deficit. Down there, your interest rate is just way too low to attract the capital you need to cover your imports, meaning the country's literally bleeding reserves.
Now watch what happens when an external shock hits the system. Say the domestic currency suddenly depreciates or foreign income completely skyrockets. Suddenly, our exports look incredibly cheap and competitive on the global stage. Naturally, our trade balance improves. Because of this awesome boost in trade, the entire BP curve fundamentally shifts downward and to the right. Think about why. Since we're exporting so much more, we don't need to suck in as much foreign capital to cover our imports anymore. Therefore, a much lower domestic interest rate can get the job done and maintain equilibrium. The whole paradigm just shifts.
Which actually brings us to a pretty massive final question. Our whiteboard models make this all look super clean, right? But in reality, if a sudden global crisis triggers wild, overnight currency fluctuations, how fast will a nation's BP curve actually shift to catch up? Can central bankers honestly adjust interest rates fast enough to find that new equilibrium? Or does the country just spiral into a massive deficit gap and risk a total meltdown? It is wild to think about the gap between clean macroeconomic theory and messy real-world crisis management. Anyway, thank you so much to the amazing Meta Consate audience for hanging out with me today. I really hope this explainer made the balance of payments click for you. Keep diving into those charts, and I will definitely catch you in the next explainer.